Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second round coverage of the Midwest Simulations Spotlight Snowball series, brought to you by the Ultimate Classic Online Racing Network, Midwest Simulations, and the DMLC Racing Channel. Finishing up qualifying here, drivers' meetings going on, get everybody on the same page. We finish up qualification, take a look at last round. It was a pretty uncharacteristic caution fest. We don't usually see out of the Ucora folks, but a lot of adjustment to the new car, little bit of fun happening this off season, so we won't hold it against anybody. Be ready to pack up and move on to the rolling hills of Connecticut for round 2. Take a look at what's in store tonight. Pretty clear day here in Connecticut. Again, Lime Rock Park, fairly hilly, bumpy track. We're using the older variation of it, so not quite as smooth as the new one. 66 laps in the race tonight, so that should really separate folks out, and we'll see if we see the same type of competition that we usually do from our front runners, and see if any of the midfield folks can surprise us. Looks like we're getting ready to grid up and do a abbreviated pace lap here, but we'll get our way worked around and get started. While we get the engines warmed up, we can take a look. Our qualifications here. Takeshi Kita, Eric Jeffers are going to start on the front row, followed by a newcomer to the series, Scott Callahan, and perennial favorite Chris Matresian. Andy Yerk and Paul Jenkins bring up row 3, with Justin Kirby uncharacteristically far back in the field. Not sure what happened during his qualifying laps, but can't imagine it's going to take him long to work his way back up toward the front with the time he's put in here. Series founder and director Scott Bolster in the outside of row 4. And Travis Bennett, David Hall, and last week's winner William Alcala filling out the rest of the field. Looks like we've got just about everybody on the grid at this point, so just wait till the lights go out and get moving. Get everybody rolling up to the front here.
Green.
Follow Kita as he takes the green flag. There we go. We're going to stay pretty clean through turn 1. A little bit of a challenge here as we work our way around and up the hill. Be able to see how many of these drivers got enough practice in. Lime Rock is notorious for having a little bit of a jump here, the improper setup. Looks like we had a car around back there. We can go back and take a look here shortly at what happened. Oh, looks like we got a car going airborne. Let's see what that was about. Travis Bennett, nope, he got clear of that first spin. Let's see what happened here. Oh, yep, there they go, a little wide back there. we've got everything straightened out. Series elected to go with no fast repairs, but also no damage for this series, just because of the inherent nature of these vehicles. They tend to be a little bit on the soft side, so didn't want to take any chances and ruin any people's nights in a fun series. Fortunately for us, Lime Rock gives us a little bit of more room than last week's show at USA Speedway did. A little bit too crowded for the field last week. We'll go on board with our leader here, follow him for a lap and see what it looks like going around the twists and turns of Lime Rock Park. Switch up right over with Scott Callahan, who's really closed the gap. Kita had built a pretty good gap following those first lap incidents, but looks like Scott's been able to reel him back in, down to just under half a second gap after starting in third, worked his way up to the second spot on the podium at this point, but as we know, we're about 10% into this race, so still plenty of race to go, and we'll see where we go. got plenty of field to work our way through tonight, but it's really hard to look away from these two. They've pretty much checked out from the rest of the field, but built a 6-second lead over Travis Bennett in third place. We saw Callahan go for the pass there going into one, but just couldn't quite make it stick coming out. He's got a couple extra spots that he'll have an opportunity for coming over the hill here. See if he can outbrake Akita coming back to the start-finish line. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to drive the Radical, it is a very fun car to drive, very easy to learn but difficult to master. You can see though when Callahan comes down the straights there, it punches an absolutely massive hole in the air. Very clear on large open road courses like Lime Rock that there's a pretty good draft, something that you see at courses like Watkins Glen and other courses that are more wide open and sweeping with straights, that you can really gain a lot of ground on the straights if you can catch up and get into that slipstream. We are going to look away from this show for just 1 minute and work our way back through the field. Looks like there will be plenty of racing left to be had between these two as the night goes on, but we're going to work our way back through the field and see some of our other competitors tonight. And on to third place is perennial Eucora driver Travis Bennett. I believe he's been in both series that Eucora hosted this year. Pretty competitive, not a guy you want to see in your mirror, that's for sure. Someone who's able to recover and get right back into the race. I've seen him out of plenty of races and then all of a sudden he's fighting for a podium, so definitely not afraid to throw the car around and drop a shoulder or two on the way through. So, someone you want to keep as far in your rear view as you can, but be ready to watch out when he catches up to you. So he's currently holding off Christopher Matresian, who also raced in both of the series this year with Eucora. Bit of a throwback paint scheme for him there. See a few of those out on the track tonight. Folks having some fun with the classic nature of this car. in P5, holding off Justin Kirby with pretty much everything he's got. The way it looks, is friend of the show and friend of the league, Paul Jenkins, hailing from beautiful, warm, sunny Texas this time of year. Always happy to see him out on the track. He always puts on a good show, and even though he came up just a little bit short in the Eucora Indy Series this year, I know he had a lot of fun doing it, and obviously a couple things outside of his control, but I hope to see him back next year competing for another championship. Eucora IndyCar champion for both seasons of Brian Beard elected to sit this season out, probably at home polishing his trophies, just waiting for next year to come around to add to the case. But we look forward to seeing him back on the track next year and seeing what kind of show we can put on with the competition that's been added to the league. See Justin Kirby making the pass to take over in 5th spot. Justin had a strong showing in qualifying every race this year in the Eucora IndyCar Series, but just things never seemed to really go his way as the season went on, and another one that really look forward to seeing on the track every week and getting inside as far as the setups and the way the race goes. He's a wealth of knowledge that really helps the league out and helps push us in the right direction every year. Alright, and for everyone who's tired of just hearing my voice here for tonight, we're joined by the one and only podcaster, Mike Ellis. Mike, you got us?
Yeah, you got me.
Yep, loud and clear.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm a little late. Just finished scarfing some pizza.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Little fried mushrooms dipped in ranch.
Oof. I should have ate before I came to the studio tonight. You're kind of making me jealous. You missed some pretty good action through the field. The front of the pack is just about checked out, with Kita having some issues, dropping him back to 2nd place just a few minutes ago. Seemed to open up the door for Callahan to open up a pretty big gap here, but the field is pretty tight behind him with 9 seconds between 2nd and 6th, so we've kind of been keeping an eye on that. Nothing against Scott, but he's putting on a show all for himself at this point.
Well, he's got it wrapped if he doesn't make mistakes, and he's gapping. I see when I look at the times here, he's actually extending that lead. If he can hold it without making mistakes, he's got it got it made. But that's the trick: is how do you get around here all these times without making a mistake? It can be pretty difficult. This is one of the tracks. I'm not very good at road, but this is one of the tracks that I might like more than other road tracks. I think it's because it's short and it's easy to really, be familiar with.
Yeah, I agree with that. We hear that comparison with, especially I touched on it before with Watkins Glen on the NASCAR side. You know, there are some people that kind of say, yeah, it's a road course, but it's kind of just an odd-shaped oval when it comes to racing on it. So I tend to like these types of tracks more with the more sweeping turns and a little bit more of a draft, especially in cars like this, to do some more oval style racing, even though you're on a road course.
Right. So comparing the two races so far, we had the USA, a lot of cautions early on that one. How do you compare it with how this one started off?
The first couple laps of this race, the very first lap in particular, had a little bit of an incident with David Hall, Andy Yerk, Scott Bolster, and William Ocala got kind of caught up in it. Someone got a little bit loose, pinballed off the wall, and ended up taking a few guys out. But fortunately, as we learned last week at USA, no damage on these cars to save everybody's night really has paid off, and they're a little ways back, but there's always time to make up, and there's a lot of race left and a lot of mistakes potentially left to make. Not that we want anyone to, but it can happen.
Yeah, trying to see where some of the battles are. I mean, looking at third to fourth, they're right together. Looks like Justin Kirby trying to take a look there on Christopher Mitrosian.
Yeah, Justin Kirby actually started this race mid-pack, actually toward the lower end of the mid-pack, and that was really surprising to see. Figured there must have been some issue with qualifying. That's pretty uncharacteristic of him, and he's been slowly chiseling things off here as he goes.
And what a battle. He's right there on him. He's on his bumper going down into one. The gap opened up a little bit here, but I expect him to try again as they come down here towards the front stretch. Yeah, he gets a run. He's got the draft. He pulls out to the side. He's going to take the inside going into one here. He's got him almost clear, but he gives him lots of room there. Christopher does. And sure enough, Justin Kirby moves it on into third place.
Yeah, that was a move that we've seen a couple times now in the battle between Callahan and Kita earlier, and Callahan just couldn't quite make it stick at that corner. But as we've seen, pretty much anyone who races here, whether it's these or the more bigger GT cars, or all the way down to the Skip Barber, one of their home tracks, turn one is definitely a place if you can make it stick. You can really make some moves there.
Oh, something's happened with David Hall. He is off the track, and it looks like he's towing. I'll see if we can get a replay here. We were just talking about a battle with David Hall and another car. They were pretty close.
Let's see what happened here. Maybe he's just coming in to get some fresh rubber, or can't imagine with the damage turned off if he just having.
Well, it looks like he got a message or something, had to leave the race, so he's gone out of the server. There was no incident, so I'm not sure what happened to David Hall.
It's unfortunate. I was just getting ready to come around and comment on the I'm not sure if we want to call that the chrome leopard paint job or what he's dubbed that, but it's quite the spectacle at USA the other night with the spec mapping and paint jobs that they have on the cars now.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a couple cars lapped now. Scott Bolster and Andy Yerk are down, showing one lap down. So it is a short track, and they get around here pretty quick. So not too surprised to see lap cars at this point.
Going back, I know we spent a bit of time on the Kirby Matresian battle here, but Chris isn't going anywhere. He's had that little bit of pressure by Justin, might have kind of pushed him off his line a little bit, but he's come right back on it, and he is all over Justin's mirror right now. Don't want to get too comfortable there.
It seems like you can always get a run if you can sniff that draft going down the front stretch. You can gain several, lengths of the car if you can get a sniff of that draft. He's a little bit too far back, I think, to get it on this lap. But if you can time it right through the back part of the track and be close coming onto the front, I think you can get enough to get around him.
Yeah, I was able to get into a test session. We've got as part of this league, there's a 2.5 hour race at Daytona coming up here toward the beginning of the new year. And I was lucky enough to get into a test session for that. And I really couldn't believe on that, the back stretch section before the bus stop into the front stretch through 3 and 4. These things, it's like they punch almost a 1 second draft behind them. And if you can get within that 1 or 0.8 of a second, you're on the bumper before you get down into turn 1 there. So I can only imagine what they're doing at a track like this.
Yep. So we talked about the Eucora Snowball results on our show tonight. We recorded the iRacers Lounge podcast. I think it was episode 258 tonight.
Wow, yeah, I was hoping you might be able to give us a sneak peek on that.
Well, it hasn't been edited yet. David Hall has to. Maybe that's why he left, to go edit the podcast, I hope. But he has to edit it. I still have to post it. It's exciting. I mean, it's build week. I mean, and this has never been a bigger build, Scott, I don't think. I can tell by the volume of traffic on the forums. Like, I get emails on certain people when they write on the forums. I've never had more emails than I've had this week. I mean, it is crazy busy.
Yeah, I couldn't believe we had a message go out in the league before the race tonight that was essentially, hey, if you haven't updated, you need to get to it, because this, between the size of the build and just the sheer amount that was affected by it, between the download and getting all the files updated, it was quite a haul getting that off the servers. So glad everybody was able to take care of that before the race tonight. We didn't have anybody missing green flag, but a lot of changes, a lot of new, and a lot of things that people have been asking for. Have you had a chance to hit any of the new content yet?
Not try it, no, but I have a good handle of it. We talk about all of it on the show and go through it in detail. I think the biggest item is the Dallara, IR01, which is basically iRacing's version of a Formula One car, or a top-tier open-wheel championship-style car. 900 horsepower, V10, has no driver aids at all, no weight jacker, no nothing. No fancy DRS or any kind of weird system like that. It's just straight up, gas pedal and steering wheel. Yeah, and then Justin Kirby's gapped Christopher Bitrosian a bit. They're spread out a bit now. So, but up front, Scott Callaghan, 8.1, now 8.8 seconds. But when I joined, his gap was about 6.8, and now we're at 8.8. So he's stretching it.
Yeah, I see that. Don't want to jinx him with any George Russell luck here, but he's got a little, just about a over 9-second now gap, so I think he's looking pretty safe out there.
I was thinking when I was talking about that new car I mentioned, this would be a good group to run that car. This particular league, I think, because IndyCar drivers. This is kind of like an IndyCar. Might be a good off-season car.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know the guys have kind of talked about, it's a new car, and I mean that's a pretty lofty term, to be honest. That's being, I know there's been some talk as far as, is it right for iRacing to have something like that isn't a real race car and things like that, but it's a new car that has so many dynamics of an old style, like your old classic Indy or older style F1 cars, that you're looking at a lot more mechanical, a lot more just pure V10 horsepower, that I know it really got the guys in the league excited talking about it.
Yeah, it looks fascinating, a beautiful car. So it looks like Eric Jeffers got around Paul Jenkins here for the 5th spot, putting him up into the top 5. Looked like a pretty clean pass, but he's trying to gap Paul down. But Paul's trying to stay with him, and was able to catch that draft I spoke about on the front stretch, and kind of shorten up that gap a bit.
Yeah, we know Paul isn't going to give an inch when it comes to this. Very respectable drivers, as most of the guys, I say most, all the guys in the Eucora field are. There's a lot of give and take and a lot of respect between drivers, but there's also a lot of skill out there that you can never really count any of these guys out.
Yeah, so they normally run the old IndyCar, right, during season?
Yes, it's the IR05 is the one that we normally run during the Indy season.
These Dallara model names, I was saying on the show, got me all messed up, I think. I mean, you got the Dallara, one you mentioned, there's the 18, and now this new car we've been talking about is the 05.
The new one is the IR01.
IR1, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
yep, yeah,
Yeah, how confused I am.
Yeah, I believe that the naming conventions are based on the year, and then they threw in with obviously with the DW12 and out of respect for Dan Weldon, they used the DW moniker there. But yeah, they kind of throw them out, and then you work in the other chassis that they build. Obviously, all their vehicles aren't open wheel. You've got the other cars that run in the more like GT series and some other Dallara chassis out there that, yeah, they have quite the garage at this point over the years.
Yep.
Looks like Eric Jeffers got a little wild over there coming over the hill.
I saw that. He's in the grass, but he made it. He kept it out of the wall.
Yeah, that was one of the focuses this week. There were a few guys that they flat out said, I've been on iRacing for a while, but I've never raced Lime Rock, just because it's not a series or it's not featured in a series that I normally ran. So that's kind of been the advisement, I guess, that everyone's making sure people know that, watch out for that hill in the back, because she'll lift you off the ground.
Yeah, you almost have to burp the throttle just a bit as you crest the hill, because if you just leave it wide open, it gets light and then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and make sure you are straightened up coming off that turn too, because if you're even a little bit sideways, she's gonna pick you up.
So, and there's a corner just before the hill. So, if you just are too late on the apex, your car is really not straightened out as you're coming up over.
No, fortunately they designed plenty of runoff. doesn't necessarily look like it on in the straightaways, but there's a lot of runoff going into the corners around here. So as hilly and bumpy as the original version of this course is, definitely forgiving a little bit to the cars.
So it looks like 7 cars on the lead lap. Andy Yerk, Scott Bolster, Travis Bennett all down laps.
Looks as if Travis may have left the server. I'm not sure if he's still in the race or not.
I'm not seeing that. Yep, he looks like he's out.
Coming up on just over 20 to go, and got a pretty big gap between the cars here. But that's not to say there isn't some competition. We've still got Paul Jenkins and Eric Jeffers are just not going to let each other go here. Eric had that little bit of a slip up on the backside of the track earlier, but he's got Jenkins on a rope and he's reeling him right back in as we go along.
Well, I found the replay of what happened with Travis Bennett, lap 39. As he come down to the hill that goes to the front stretch, he went wide in that corner, which is really easy to do. And he looked like he had it saved. He crested the hill and hit a bump, and the car came around. As he came down the hill, he ended up in the gully down in the infield there, and towed out, and obviously left the server. Tough break.
Yeah, it's never fun when you find yourself somewhere that iRacing doesn't want you to be. It's usually pretty hard to get out of spots like that.
So Scott Callaghan got 10.3 seconds now over Takesha Kita in second. Justin Kirby third. He's 5 seconds back from Kita. And then Christopher Mitrisian in fourth. He's 7 seconds back from Justin. Paul Jenkins up to fifth there. Eric Jeffers sixth. William Alcala seventh. Scott Bolster ninth. Andy Yerk 10th. That's all our cars running. There's lots of other changes going on in iRacing besides just the build, too. They have dedicated people making setups, and they are providing for a big majority of the cars now what they call top tier or first split competitive setups that are available to everybody. And there's a big push for that, and it's really nice to see that, because I think that opens up some of these open series for the regular Joe who might not know how to do setups.
Yeah, it's always good to see especially when you have the actual developers behind the system, being able to build those setups a little more accessible for the everyday person to be able to hop in and maybe tune a little bit off the baseline, but that baseline is still something that can be competitive. You know, we've seen a huge boost in the market right now as far as third-party setup builders and folks that have figured out the best ways to set up certain cars, or maybe race a car in real life and have a little more background knowledge. But as competitive as some of those setups are, it still sometimes just doesn't match the driving style of a different driver. So all of a sudden that setup that might be able to win third, second, even top split for one driver, you know, they're just out of control for somebody else because their driving style is so much different.
I think it's really iRacing's answer to all those setup shops that have popped up, like you said. You know, there's a lot of that going on where people are selling setups. And maybe this is the way to combat that a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, you know, it sucks to have to pay for setups, you know. So maybe it's a good thing that iRacing is putting out these setups that can be competitive. Oh, Eric Jeffers stuffs it in the wall hard here. He's able to keep going, though, but yeah, it looks like he's going to lose a spot. He's
Right.
checking the car now to see if it's okay.
Right along
Lets
with.
another car go by as he feels it out.
Yep, looks like he just. I don't know if he got a little bit of a lockup going into the turn there, or what. What exactly happened? But, oh, yeah, he just went a little bit wide onto the grass. Like he pulled a few G's into the tire barrier, but fortunately, I think he's probably okay.
Well, he lost one spot to William Alcala, and then the leader, Scott Callaghan, had put him down a lap as well. Um, and so now he's down a lap, and we got 5 on the lead lap. But a moment for Scott, our leader, too, as he was trying to get around that without incident. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been a long time since I've broadcasted a race. I did this for a long time, several years ago with Max Speed, Rudy Cummings over there at Max Speed TV, Michael D'Amico at All Pro Racing, and I was like lead announcer on a lot of different, like several nights a week for a while there.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we're fans of the show, and the league is full of fans of the show, and we like to support the endeavors of the, like you had mentioned before about iRacing with their setups and kind of their in-house, whether it's the switch to the iRacing broadcasting or the podcast that they do, but it's also really nice to catch up and be kind of part of that, the fan service that goes along with iRacing, to have that third-party view, outside looking in, for some of the opinions and things like that you guys can provide on your show. So really appreciate listening to it, and looking forward to the new one coming up that you guys just knocked out tonight.
Yeah, it would be real easy for us to have iRacing staff on all the time and this and that. But like you said, the third-party view or the fan view that's maybe separate from that, a different point of view. That's always been a goal of the show, is to keep it that way. And I was kind of surprised when I realized that Drew Adamson, who we had on last week, he was the first actual iRacing employee we've had on to date, and it's been almost 6 years. We've had Tyler Hudson on twice. We've had Christian Challenger on twice. We've had other people that now work for iRacing, but weren't when they were on the show. So it was nice to get that first. I think it was fascinating hearing what Drew said about how he broadcasted everything. So.
Don't look now, but it looks like Eric Jeffers is working his way back up the field. We've got still a lap down, but still racing here.
He's caught up a little bit to William Alcala, who got around him after he got off up there, but he's trying to get that spot back. And Scott Callaghan, his lead now showing 9.2. So it was a 10-something before. So Takesha Kita got a second on him somehow.
Akita's worked his way back around, and he's been plucking off the draft of the lapped traffic here. You see him in second, but he's working his way up behind Will Alcala right now, and he's getting a little bit of a tow, opening that gap back up between him and Justin Kirby as well. Kirby was able to pull him back within 5 seconds, and Kita's been able to leverage the draft off of Jeffers and Alcala to start working that gap back open.
Yeah, and then our leader, Scott Callaghan, just lapped Paul Jenkins for 5th, but in the 5th car lap down. A slow lap for Scott as he was tiptoeing around Paul there.
Yeah, that's the danger when you start working your way into lapped traffic, that I'm that road course guy that I know what it means when that leader comes up behind you, and they're usually trying to get around you in a hurry, and there's not always a good spot for them to do it. So when you've got somebody like Callahan who hasn't raced with the league so much and maybe isn't as familiar with another driver, even one as prominent as Paul Jenkins is with the league, you can kind of get that little bit of nervousness to try to make those passes, and a little might not be as aggressive as you normally would, lose a little bit of time.
Yeah, isn't that the beauty of leagues, though, is you get to know the fellow competitor. You know who you can trust, who you can't. I always say I often get that a lot in my NASCAR iRacing series because you end up with the same group of drivers typically. But with a league, yeah, you get to intimately know these guys, and you, especially when you're in the Indy cars on the oval, you're on Michigan, you guys are toe to toe, wheels barely touching, and nobody's wrecking.
Right, yeah, you get to know those people, and you tend to get to know the people who race around you. Like my skill level on the track is nothing I'm ever going to brag about. I'm not as familiar with the folks like Paul Jenkins or Justin Kirby, but when we get into mid-pack drivers, I know how far I'm going to be able to push somebody like Eric Jeffers, Andy Yerk. These guys are extremely respectful on the track. They know how far they can push me. They know how far I can push them. And sometimes, like we saw this year at Michigan, that works out and we all kind of finish up towards the front. So sometimes we can help each other out, having that knowledge of just the guys around you that you're not even the whole league, but the ones that you're next to every race.
Right. So I was just looking at my phone, and it looks like we got breaking news. We're going to break right here on the podcast. iRacing indicates on Twitter here, we're going to get the Coke Speedway tomorrow, but they're actually not calling it that. They're saying the iRacing Super Speedway. It says temporarily under new management, this monstrous track will be available tomorrow. So I guess that means temporarily under new management, meaning they're still awaiting Coke to approve it.
That would be my guess. I was a little bit surprised when I heard the news actually that they were holding off on that, given Coke's involvement throughout the year with obviously the NASCAR series and their overall involvement with NASCAR as a whole. But then again, I can't imagine how long it takes, contracts and paperwork and what can go into something like this. So kudos to them for the work that they put into it, and hopefully it works out for everybody. And if nothing else, I don't know if you're a big NASCAR 03 fan or not, but I know I'm really looking forward to taking the fastest car I can out onto that as soon as it drops.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a blast. I haven't bought any content, but I will be buying that track for sure. I guarantee it. Whatever they call it. It's a shame that the timing didn't work out right for the announcement. Obviously, iRacing teased it. They hoped to release it in the build. Coke probably had too much red tape, being some giant company, and they didn't get the approvals as fast as iRacing thought they would. Otherwise, and so they waited a couple days for it. Now they're going to go ahead and push it out anyway because it is done, and they'll just figure out the naming thing later.
Yeah,
But yeah, being a partner, you think they would have had all this lined up, perfectly.
right. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's great for iRacing to just be able to put that content out, much like the IRO1. It's interesting because they're both imaginary pieces of content, or even you could even call it like concept type content. Like if somebody built this giant speedway, this is what it would be like, or if somebody built this
Concept
perfectly
car.
tuned open wheel car, this is what it would be like. You could build based on what iRacing has put together. And it was interesting in the forums and on Facebook, other social media, seeing the difference in the reaction to those two announcements. The excitement about Coke Speedway, and then just almost the either love it or hate it for the IRO1 when they're really both the same type of content.
Yeah, I was telling on the show, I kind of went both ways with this over throughout the week. Initially, I was kind of against it. I was like, what? I'm an iRacing purist, you know. I wanted to, we have race cars, we scan them, and we race them, you know. But this is different, you know, and it took me a little while, a few days, I think, to kind of figure that out. And I think at the end of the day, it's a good thing. But yeah, it's interesting. iRacing is taking some bold steps for sure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. It'd be, it's great to see the partnership between iRacing, even as you know, some people think of them as this giant, you know, just giant software development company when they're not a huge team out there working on this content, and then they see something like, well, you're making up a car. Well, yeah, we are, but it's in cooperation with Dallara, one of the greatest chassis manufacturers in racing. And it's not just something that we sat down and made up like you're going to play in a concept car in Gran Turismo. I mean, this is something that if Dallara wanted to, based on the specs that they sat down with iRacing, they could probably put this car on the track in a year.
Right.
So
yeah, it's not a developer who made a race car. It's a race car designer made a race car.
Right, and then you see the iRacing World Championship Series that it's eventually looking to blossom into, and that's pretty amazing when you've got a computer program, a simulation that is so ingrained into racing now that they're developing their own spec car for their own series.
I kind of like the idea because they don't have to deal with the sanctioning body, you know, a separate F1 or IndyCar or whatever it is, and then get their own sponsorship. Okay, so they're their own series, they have their own car. Let's go get our own sponsor and let's do this right.
Right. As we come up to the white flag, this race went very quick. Maybe not as quick as Scott Callahan would have wanted, but looks like he's going to be able to hold on there. Come back into a little bit of lap traffic, but he's got all day behind him. I don't think he's too concerned about making another pass here. I think he's pretty much done all he cares to do tonight and bring it down the hill one last time and bring it home.
Yeah, 9-second gap, so no hurry to get past the lap traffic here. There it is, checkered.
With a little wave to the crowd, Callahan crosses the line in first. Brings home his first Eucora win. We'll get some.
And it's time for donuts.
Time for the burnouts, yes sir. He is not going to be friends with the landscaper after he's done here, but I don't think he minds too much.
Yeah, great win for Scott. Second, it was Takesha Kita, 8.9 seconds back. Impressive. He was able to make up a couple seconds there in the final parts of that race. Justin Kirby in third. Christopher Mitrosian fourth. William Alcala fifth. Eric Jeffers seventh. I guess I must have missed what happened to Paul Jenkins. He fell clear back to ninth.
Yeah, I think I missed that too. I didn't see him fall back, and it's like he ended up 6 laps down. Then Travis Bennett and David Hall, the early exits to the night, but still put up a good fight. And we both know this track can, those just like the car, it's easy to drive, but really hard to master. And it's like Mr. Callahan isn't quite done serving the donuts yet, so we'll let him wrap up and we'll call it a week. Good show.
I checked Paul Jenkins' replay. It looks like he just pulled in pit road at some point. So I'm not sure exactly what happened. Yeah, thanks for letting me talk about the show tonight. We have a lot of exciting changes. We have Grid Finder as a sponsor, and with that extra sponsor, we were able to actually set up our website for the first time, and we have iRacersLounge.com, and you guys check it out. Our show notes for today's episode are going to debut on that website tonight. Be mobile friendly on your iPhone or Android.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. Being able to get that extra level of engagement and being able to be a little bit more reachable through a different medium now that obviously we see our ebbs and flows with social media, so anything you can do to get the word out really helps. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on and joining us for the broadcast, Mike. And maybe we'll see you in the future. Don't think this will be our last one. We'll see what the league boss says, if we put on a good enough show for him or not. But hope to keep developing this and be able to get the league footprint out there a little better, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks, Scott, for the invitation. Yeah, I almost jumped in the car instead of the booth. I'm kind of glad I didn't. I don't think I would have looked pretty out there.
Yeah, I was on the fence, and then I started watching some of the practices, and I just thought that the safer place would be high above the track with a microphone instead of a steering wheel. So here we are. But thanks a lot and appreciate it, and we will see you next time. Thanks everyone for watching, and hope you enjoyed it.
Right, see you out on the track.